I was shaking. I was crying. I was gutted like a fish. I was sniveling and my career was ended. That's what you'll hear if you tune in to right-wing political accounts. I apologize for the theatrics, but I think we'll learn a lot in this segment as I review what prompted that reaction from right-wing media. That's what I heard about myself when I opened up Twitter to the right-wing accounts that I follow. And it was prompted by my appearance on Timcast IRL, which is one of Tim Pool's shows. And I think what's so interesting about this is, well, you'll see. It illustrates the mechanisms by which a lot of people become misinformed, and how people can see the same exact clip that we're seeing, but draw a wildly different conclusion because they're misled about the details. Okay, what am I talking about? Well, Benny Johnson, who provided some of those quotes that I was saying to you, he's one of those right-wing political commentators. Him and Tim Pool. This is not relevant to our discussion necessarily, but they were caught up in that tenant media, Russian money scandal. But he said Tim Pool ends the career of sniveling lib, yours truly, live on his show. Guts him like a fish. Leaves him shaking in stunned silence. Now, what's weird about that to me is that you can watch the clip, and I feel like then you're going to be disappointed whenever I'm not shaking in stunned silence. But then what's so fascinating is, to Benny Johnson's credit, I guess, the clip you're about to watch again from the conversation I had with Tim Pool and 3 or 4 other people who were all right-wing also there during that conversation, debating me, is Benny Johnson at least posted the full context, whereas one of the guys, before going into that video, named Colin Rugg, said liberal influencer Luke Beasley sits in total silence for over 3 minutes as Tim Pool excoriates him in defense of January 6 prisoners. And this clip, I'll take note when we're going through the longer one of where this one cuts off, but it cuts off my entire response where I debunk what Tim Pool said. So it's crazy how people would see the rant you're about to watch from Tim Pool and not be curious what my actual response was, and instead just assume I must have just sat there silent and not said anything. While you watch this, if you do appreciate my show and you don't think that I'm a crying, sniveling, shaking lib, you can show your support by clicking the subscribe button. In reality, this clip demonstrates that Tim Pool, despite his performative rant here, himself isn't freshened up or isn't informed on the details of January 6th. As you're going to see, stick in. It is like 3+ minutes of him ranting. I know, just hold on, because that amount of aggression becomes really embarrassing when I get a chance to respond. Okay.
You have.
No,
right?
I haven't.
No, stop. You don't know anything about these January 6 cases. You don't know why these people are in jail. You don't know that a man is in Brooklyn right now for 3 years without charge or trial. And when Donald Trump says these people have been held for too long, you say, no, Trump is wrong. Keep them locked up. That's fucking fascist. Dude, you've been sitting here with no knowledge of the specifics of some of these cases. There is a man in Brooklyn right now, I'm going to say it again, no charges whatsoever brought, and he's been in jail for 3 fucking years. For you to sit there and say it is good that he remains locked up is fascism. That is saying the hierarchical system of the courts and the government is just, and the process is all that matters. And I am saying perhaps 3 years is enough, because I actually have moral logic and an understanding of these cases. Hence, my position on January 6th has always been the people who have attacked police must go to prison. But 3 years is a fucking long time for assault on an officer. We have seen people on the far left, notably when they were firebombing shit all across Minnesota, 33 people murdered. And how many criminal charges did we get for this? When they firebombed a police station and forced the police to evacuate. On May 29th, 2020, when thousands of far leftists firebombed the White House grounds and set fire to St. John's Church and injured 100 police officers, how many fucking people went to prison for 3 years? How many of them who never showed up on that day are in prison for 20 years? Enrique Tarrio wasn't even in D.C. on January 6th. And you are saying that man who his only crime was, quote, don't leave. That's his only crime. You think he should be in prison for 20 years because you're a fascist.
Okay, because I know y'all will get exhausted let me jump in, take a breath. It's a lot of theatrics from him there. Obviously performative, but that's why I didn't want to respond in kind and start going, well, I'm doing a her. So I just wanted to let him get all of it out and then explain to him how he was wrong. But what's so fascinating is I rarely get that angry, especially on the show. If I'm going to get that angry and scream at someone to their face, I'm going to make sure I'm correct on the details. So that comment he just made about Enrique Tarrio is the one that I'm going to address. How do you just rant and not know at all what you're talking about? Very confusing to me.
You don't care what the facts are. You don't care if this is unjust. You only care that the machine state has decreed you are not to be locked up. And this is the problem I have with the left. They don't know the facts. They don't care about the facts. They view morality as a blanket government stroke of the pen, and every person, regardless of their crime, should be in prison for decades. I reject it outright. The people who fought cops should go to prison. They did. It's been 3 years. But when you've got people who are on misdemeanor charges for having walked into a building at 4 p.m. after the riot, and I know some of these people, they walked into a building for 2 minutes and walked out, and they got 18 months for that. I don't see you defending the innocent people who walked onto a public grass at a public building after a riot had been completed. You don't know, you don't care. You've taken a tribal position and people are suffering because of it. Now you say that Donald Trump saying the injustice that we've seen warrants commutation or pardons. You say that means he's advocating for violence. This is the ultimate problem. Then you cite a press release from Maryland saying, but the right's more violent. There is a distinction between a white supremacist as a right-wing group and a run-of-the-mill Christian conservative who showed up on that day not to protest. Let's talk about Brandon Strzok. He never went in the building. He was on the other side of the building. There was a permitted protest. He walked up the stairs and he was yelling. They put this guy in prison. There is Owen Schroyer, who was at a permitted rally, who was yelling death to communists. They put him in prison and specifically cited his speech. My dude, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's fine. I get it. We try to be polite. We try to be nice. But there are so many young liberals who sit here and say, the corporate press told me that these people are bad and the machine state government has decreed it by pen. So I don't care what crime they committed. I don't care what the jury said. I don't care who was on the jury. Enrique Tarrio, who was not there, should be in prison for 2 decades. Tell me this now. Why is Enrique Tarrio in prison?
Yeah, so they uncovered with him his plot to overthrow the government.
Enrique Tarrio?
Yeah, and his organization.
What plot? Who's they? Give me some
prosecutors.
Give me some fucking data. Stop squinting at me and saying the prosecutors did a thing.
Okay, so again, because it's even watching this back, I'm like, gosh, secondhand embarrassment for him because I know where it's going, which is he then Googles and fact checks what I'm about to say. And I'm right, obviously, but I'm not going to scream it at him, which is that Enrique Tarrio was caught red-handed for organizing with the Proud Boys a plot to overthrow the government. The details of that plot, I will go through in a little bit. But one of the things he did a lot throughout this conversation was sort of, okay, you say that January 6th defendants shouldn't be pardoned. Well, then name the exact defendants, every single one, their age, how long they're in prison, and if you can't, then you don't know anything about this. So that's what he was doing there. What exact communications, what exact words, what exact documents? And it's like, all right, before going on to this show, you don't get the topics. Maybe the other ones do, but I sure didn't. And so I go on. Oh, well, here's the gist of it. But if we want to dive into the exact encrypted messages that were uncovered by prosecutors and brought into court, we can do so. But let's pull up the charging documents so that we're accurate. But if a particular specific detail can't be recalled, then your entire argument must be wrong, even though no one off the top of their head could remember the thousands of bits of evidence that were presented against Enrique Tarrio that led to his criminal conviction of seditious conspiracy, right? But here was my best shot at recounting a topic that I haven't talked about since this conviction.
You didn't know. You didn't read it. You didn't read the court papers. All you know is the fascist machine state told you he should be in prison, and you're saying yes to them. Tell me why. Give me the data.
I understand that laws on the books have been there for a long time that I agree with, that if it's proven that you had a plan and you wanted to act on it, and then days after.
What's the proof?
The proof?
Say the proof.
By prosecutors.
Don't ask. Say it.
Communications between.
What communications? What did he say? What did he do?
Is this serious?
Are you going to tell me why you think Enrique Tarrio should be in prison for 20 years, or are you going to say the government decreed it?
I just explained to you.
So the government said so. Is that it?
It's usually law enforcement, which I guess is a part of the government.
Government said so?
Yep.
So you can't say why.
That uncovers evidence of communications, a memo that he crafted and sent to his organization.
Saying what?
That detailed each institution of government that they were going to try to overthrow. Then just days later, his organization is at the Capitol.
I don't think we can.
So then he starts Googling it. But first, let me play, again, 3 minutes of ranting and misleading people, followed up by not letting me say 5 words to explain what it was that justified seditious conspiracy charges and then a conviction on Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys. But then when I finally get a second to say it, it's that this guy messed up and was communicating with his organization and sending a written out, documented plan to overthrow the government, then coordinated such an attempt as the Proud Boys tried to do that. If you don't think you should go to prison for a while for such traitorous activity, I don't know why you would think you are patriotic, to be honest. But for the fire and fury to be coming from him on that, and then to go, well, let's Google it. Well, I thought if I didn't know the exact wording on this, in this memo that prosecutors obtained for a topic I didn't know we were going to talk about that day, then I can't be right. But you don't clearly know anything about the court documents yourself. And here, let's just play this and then we'll go back. Just him saying you don't know about the court documents.
Give me some
prosecutors.
Give me some fucking data. Stop squinting at me and saying the prosecutors did a thing. You didn't know. You didn't read it. You didn't read the court papers.
You didn't read the court papers. Okay. And then I give more details about the court papers than he seemed to know. And it leads to him Googling. Let me play this for you uninterrupted. It's fascinating because this is how I guess people are misled. They won't take the time to just research what it is that they're saying, or they're convinced by sort of his chest beating instead of listening to what it is he's saying versus what I'm saying and which one is substantiated by fact.
All you know is the fascist machine state told you he should be in prison and you're saying yes to them. Tell me why. Give me the data.
I understand that laws on the books have been there for a long time that I agree with, that if it's proven that you had a plan and you wanted to act on it, and then days after.
What's
the proof?
Say the proof.
By prosecutors.
Don't ask. Say it.
Communications between.
What communications? What did he say? What did he do?
Is this serious?
Are you going to tell me why you think Enrique Tarrio should be in prison for 20 years, or are you going to say the government decreed it?
I just explained to you.
So the government said so. Is that it?
It's usually law enforcement, which I guess is a part of the government.
Government said so?
Yep.
Law enforcement
that uncovers evidence of communications, a memo that he crafted and sent to his organization.
Saying what?
That detailed each institution of government that they were going to try to overthrow. Then just days later, his organization is at the Capitol.
I don't think we can even pull up Enrique Tarrio.
I'm not quite sure that there's any evidence of that sort.
Yeah. You know what? I'll say this. The idea that Enrique Tarrio crafted a memo outlining or they
he goes, seditious conspiracy. Okay. And just cut away from that for a second, Jade. Let me quickly, for all of you, explain. You had this 1776 returns document, which was the memo I was referring to, that specifically outlined, crafted by Tarrio, or I should say, accessed by Tarrio and spread around. I don't know if he did the actual writing of it, but his organization did, and then he was using it as guidelines to disrupt the certification process of the election, of course, and to take over government buildings. You obviously have all these communications, Proud Boys group chats. You have, let's see here, encrypted messages. Of course, video footage of his organization at the Capitol attempting to violently overthrow the lawful election. And geolocation data as well, helping to establish the placement of all these different Proud Boys members, Enrique Tarrio being at the top of that organization and leading them into battle. That's seditious conspiracy manifested right there. But somehow, I don't even understand from his perspective what made all that rage justified if his big bombshell question of, tell me about Enrique Tarrio, and then he didn't know the main points of what sent Enrique Tarrio to prison. I don't know where that came from or why he was so confident to scream so much. Very weird.
3 months featured witness evidence featured Tarrio and co-defense included videos, thousands of messages in encrypted chat groups, as well as a public message on Parler. On or before January 6th, Tarrio convened a Ministry of Self-Defense to coordinate Proud Boys leadership on January 6th. The chat showed that Tarrio, stationed in Baltimore, encouraged the Proud Boys as they attacked the Capitol. Let's figure out what that encouragement was. Are they going to actually say in the article? So here's a citation. Proud Boy and 3 other members of the far-right groups were convicted Thursday in a plot to attack the Capitol. A jury in Washington, D.C. found Tarrio and 3 lieutenants guilty of seditious conspiracy after hearing dozens of witnesses. Jurors cleared a 5th defendant, Dominic Pizzola, on a citizen charge in a significant milestone of the Justice Department, which is now secured a conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. They will never stop. Okay, that's interesting. Wikipedia asserts that they did this, but there's actually nothing in the news article that actually states that is true. Well, now we got a problem.
Well, no, okay, yikes. This is so strange. I'm excited. I am going on again, so look forward to that. And I also will show you a different appearance on a different one of these shows soon. But now I know that I'll probably just have to be more aggressive because my whole thing, y'all know in conversations, I'm just super open to having a discussion. I want to be good faith. I'm not trying to get some epic clip takedown for the most part. But if we want to play that game, I'll play the game and I'll be more aggressive. It just is a bummer that their bad faith prompts me into having to be more aggressive instead of just having a really open, calm dialogue about these issues. But a lot of people don't want that. That's not what gets clicks. And so they do whatever the heck that was.
Let's try this again. Let's try a secondary source. Let's see. There it is. They introduced evidence that Tarrio discussed with associates a plan to have a large crowd in Washington storm government buildings in a scheme they called 1776 returns, in which the Winter Palace was used as an apparent code for the U.S. Capitol. In a message, he said, make no mistake, we did this, do what must be done, and he directed the Proud Boys to do it again. So the question then becomes, in the bigger picture...
So are you going to at all acknowledge that you just blew up over something that I was absolutely citing fairly?
I don't think you cited it fairly.
I think people should be prosecuted for engaging in plans to overthrow our government. That's a very call me crazy. Okay.
That's a very loose definition of plans to overthrow the government.
Y'all don't seem to be that informed.
Wait, look, respectfully, I cover a lot of protests and riots. A lot of people try to protest and riot and occupy government buildings. Do you think that qualifies as trying to, overthrow your government?
No.
Okay, good. So, I mean...
but if they had a plan to take control of the government, which was this one.
If this was an actual plan, this was the leastly poorly,
most over the government?
Ridiculous plan ever. They went after people for having Lego sets of the Capitol. Yeah. I mean, the level of political prosecution here, would you even admit that there was some level of politics when it came to the prosecution of the J6ers? Would you say politics played a role in this?
Engaging with this as thoughtfully as possible, not trying to grandstand. Of course. Looking at you, Tim. That's what I was trying to do. Of course, often, for very justifiable reasons, prosecutors will try to make an example of someone who, for example, tried to overthrow the government to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. I see why such a thing,
personally, I reject
categorized as sedition,
to overthrow the government,
would be uniquely bad to prosecutors and political in that this all involved politics, right? And thus,
I'm sorry, I have to say this. Sent. The Wikipedia article making those claims is not citing any actual proof that they said those things.
I was like, what? No, of course, the Wikipedia article is not going to have the video they showed in court. They're not going to have, actually, they might have linked, but the 1776 returns document, they're not going to have the encrypted messages. But if you go, as he said that I was supposed to, and read the court documents, you can get them more. It's going to be more boring than a succinct news story breakdown, but you can yourself learn about all of the different details of this prosecution and why he was convicted in front of a jury of his peers. Why something we rarely charge people with, seditious conspiracy, sedition, why he was convicted and sentenced to 22 years, I think it was. Tell me the exact year and the exact month and the exact moment that he'll get parole. Otherwise, you don't know anything about it. Tim Pool might say. You're right. I can't recall exactly how many years it was, but 20 plus. And I'd say, what do you think someone should be sentenced to if they are caught directing a militia to violently attack the Capitol as an election's being certified, to block, in their words, the certification process, as a part of a broader plot that didn't end up successfully happening for them, for obvious reasons, to take over other government buildings, to take back, like 1776, our government from the tyrants violently, and then hand it to, I guess, Trump. Do you think that's not like one of the worst things you can try to do democratically? Violently block elections. Sedition. That's pretty bad to me. So we have more clips to go through that are less intense. But look at where the most viral clip, they got something like 6 million from one guy, so like tens of millions of views. Look where the right-wing clipped version of this clip ended.
Oh, you didn't read it. You didn't read the court papers. All you know is the fascist machine state told you he should be in prison, and you're saying yes to them.
So weird. They didn't show my response where Tim Pool is forced to completely give up on that tone he was using and start Googling, which means I guess he doesn't have the correct stance, because he says that needing to access information to make sure you're correct on an argument that you didn't know you were going to have to make that day, wanting to substantiate your argument comprehensively instead of just throwing out talking points, that means you don't have any argument because you don't know anything. But him Googling in front of everyone and going, oh, seditious conspiracy, who knew? Beats me. I thought it was for saying he likes Trump. That apparently is not a sign of not knowing what he's talking about. But again, and I've had thousands of reminders of this, if you're right wing, you saw that, probably just 3-minute, 53-second one where I don't get a chance to respond, where I kind of just wanted to let him let it all out, and then I was going to give the correct side of the story. But even people who saw the 7-minute, 54-second one, look at this one, or 55. 2.6 million views, 78,000 likes of Benny Johnson saying I got gutted like a fish. But I was the right one. How? He pulled a So next time I will not be keeping that calm of a tone. If that goes down again, so that was the criticism from the left of me, was being too, let me calmly explain to you what, because apparently that's too easy to clip out. So in the moment, I'm going to have to not let him go on so long. I understand now, but God forbid I try to have a good faith conversation once in a while. Also, where was the shaking that was happening? Jane, did you see? I heard I was shaking and crying. But so my point is, this is a part of why I have a lot of patience with people I disagree with in terms of the followers, because the followers aren't choosing to mislead people mostly, and they're not the ones choosing where these clips get clipped. The more viral one was the less than 4-minute one where they didn't see me fact checking Tim, didn't see Tim realizing he was wrong but not admitting it. And so you almost have compassion for the followers who would only see that and go, wow, Tim must be right, because apparently this guy says that I just was in silence. I didn't have anything to say. Now, how you watch the 8-minute one and get that conclusion, I don't know. I don't even dare to do it, but if you were to scroll down into the comments, you'd see a lot of people thinking, indeed, my guts are out like a fish. Now, charging forward, another thing that was really interesting about this conversation that I alluded to previously was that I go into it. One of the things that I think confused me, I'll show you in a different segment, me more debating on the culture war Tim Pool show, and Tim wasn't there, and it was framed to me as a debate show. So I come in, all right, cool, I'll debate. And that's where you can aggressively, no, don't talk over me. I'm going to talk over you. Interruption, right? That's debate. Great. But this one, the IRL one, was framed as Tim Pool says the news. I respond, just give my take. And so I wasn't coming in thinking I need to like talk over people and shout and shut people down, which led to that kind of unequal tone, or just the difference, the discrepancy in how we were speaking to one another, I guess, even though I usually, no matter how mad I get, probably want to go that ballistic, especially when I'm wrong. But one of the debate tactics, I guess, that Tim Pool uses is going, as I referenced, if you don't know every tiny detail about something that you didn't know we were going to talk about, then you must be wrong about it. But no one in my position, the best political commentators ever out there, who I know even, who knows so much more than me, can't just keep every tiny detail, every single stat in their head. That's why before segment, we prep, we make sure that it's substantiated, we present that data to you. But one of the ways, I guess, Tim Pool has practiced to expose people is by asking all these follow-up questions or random, irrelevant questions about details. And if you forget one, then you're wrong. You must be wrong, right? And here it was so funny because he did that, and I didn't know who he was talking about. And in the moment, I was thinking, dang, that is a really prominent news story. I'm bummed I didn't know who he was talking about. But as this clip is about to demonstrate for you, it turns out he was using the wrong name.
Do you believe Christina Hoff Sommers too?
Oh, this was during a segment that you could describe as, do you believe victims? And he was going through E. Jean Carroll and then this one. And you might be thinking, who's that? My thought too.
Do you believe Christina Hoff Sommers too?
I don't actually know that case.
That was the Brett Kavanaugh one.
Oh, yeah.
You do believe her?
It has been yes.
That she was afraid to fly?
Yes.
But she flew several times for vacation?
Yeah, people are afraid to fly.
You believe that she installed the second door in her home because she needed an escape?
I have to tell you,
But then she Airbnb'd it out.
especially on that case, I would only want to debate it if I'd freshened up on the details of it.
What makes someone a liberal or conservative is whether they actually know what they're talking about.
Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford, who claims he sexually assaulted her in high school, told their contradicting stories to a worldwide TV audience.
Do you believe Christina Hoff Sommers too?
Christine Blasey Ford.
I don't actually know that case.
That was the Brett Kavanaugh one.
Christine Blasey Ford.
I have to tell you,
But then she Airbnb'd it out.
especially on that case, I would only want to debate it if I'd freshened up on the details of it.
Christina Hoff Sommers.
Christine Blasey Ford.
What makes someone a liberal or conservative is whether they actually know what they're talking about.
Friend of the show, Josiah from Pondering Politics, made that. So that was the big takeaway for him was you're only conservative if you know what you're talking about. And liberal, you just don't know what you're talking about. Like how you don't know Christine Hoff Sommers and how she accused Kavanaugh of sexual assault. Oh, I mean, that's not the right name. It's crazy to be that smug and then be wrong. That's why I try not to be super smug, because occasionally you get names wrong. I've got names wrong. And also on the Kavanaugh case, it has been so long since I've thought about that unless you told me that's what we're going to talk about, I would not want to speak on something that I am not freshened up on the details of, as I said there. I think, I've said it to you before, but I think a sign of intelligence, not to give myself kudos, but just to anyone, is knowing what you don't know. Being aware of the gaps in your either memory or knowledge, and only speaking on things that you know that you're informed on. Only making assertions, I should say. Speaking on them to learn is great, but I'm not going to go out there and say, yeah, I know for sure that I could say this and this about a case that I have not read up on the details of recently enough to do a debate on, which is why a lot of times debates will tell you what the topics are going to be. But it's crazy for him to get the name wrong while saying that I must not know anything because I don't remember. Or he brought up the Ahmaud Arbery case and did a similar thing where I'm just being honest. I have not informed myself on that recently enough where I could go through and tell you how I feel about each one of the bits of evidence that was brought for those convictions for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And I'm only going to talk about something if I know that I know the details about it. I don't think that's crazy. I don't think that's proof that the only true definition of conservatism is when you know things, except for the things that we're talking about right now, apparently. Then we go further. Understanding of the chief authoritarian crime you could do is trying to prevent the key part of our democratic process, which is the peaceful transfer of power.
So, chief authoritarian crime you could do is kill someone without due process, but we won't get into that one tonight.
That was Obama.
That's right.
Yeah. The point here is when we're trying to logically understand what is going on, because clearly it's not so easy to say Trump is evil, Trump is good. There's two different factions in this country. Trump won the popular mandate. Therefore, you could argue, I guess the public thinks Trump is good. In that case, the public interpretation of this in the majority is that Trump wasn't calling for the termination of the Constitution. His faction won the
Almost every
vote.
person I've talked to doesn't know that. Doesn't know what? What he said? Yeah. No, people don't know that he's threatened media outlets like he has. He's talked about...
Threatened them with what? Come on.
Calling them criminals would be bad.
Why?
Because fostering an environment where people who, for the singular reason that they speak out against you politically, which they're allowed to do, are criminals... That's the only thing he would cite, is that they've said terrible things about him. And then going further, say the government should get involved in punishing them. And then to show his willingness to, even before he takes office, with him as a much more resourced person, trying to punish ABC, which we could talk about that. That was ridiculous that they decided to bend the knee there. And then Ann Seltzer for doing a poll that was wrong.
But that's a private lawsuit.
And he's doing that for a purpose.
So?
Which I don't like.
I sued Kamala Harris.
Awesome. I'm saying I don't like whenever presidents wield their official governmental power or...
But it's private. It's not government power.
Or their power of their massive megaphone, understanding he's about to have governmental power to threaten people who speak out against him.
There was no guarantee that he was going to have governmental power.
No, he's doing this suit now.
Yeah.
He's doing the ABC, or the ABC was before.
When it was going on prior to him winning, though.
No, Ann Seltzer, he just brought this suit.
He did. I think it's a stupid lawsuit. But it's a private lawsuit, so I don't care.
What you think? Yeah, I don't think it's stupid. So I'm not going to ask you. I was about to ask you.
Like why? Like I don't know. Like Trump could sue whoever he wants. I don't know.
He said that the government should rip CBS off the air, ABC off the air.
Do you know why he says
he was lying about what happened in a Kamala
Because
Harris
CBS edited the interview.
They edit every interview?
No.
They edited his interview too.
They edited two different versions, and when they got a bad reaction, they changed her answer.
So I'll play more of this back and forth. Pretty interesting. But they go, who cares? Who cares if Trump's trying to induce utter fear for anyone who does anything that he doesn't like in the media? Who cares? Okay. I mean, that can be your argument. I care about, oh gosh, what's the word? Oh, freedom of the press. That's a phrase, not a word. And then here, yeah, I'm going on again. I already scheduled. I'm going to follow through with the commitment. I scheduled before I did this one. But this is one of the most bad faith environments I've been in. This is not how you talk to people, right? That's just not how you communicate thoughtfully and intelligently and meaningfully in a way that is directed towards trying to gain some value from the discussion. And when I watch it back, I'm honestly shocked at how chill I was because this is so infuriating. I have 4 people sitting around me being as rude as possible, and they're all wrong about the big viral moment. And all of their audience isn't willing to go look up the things they're talking about to see who was right on that whole the January 6th Serene Catario thing. And then they're just clapping. And all because he does this a lot. Why? Tell me. I don't care. Tone is not the only indicator of meaning. You can also listen to the words that people are saying. Good job, Past Luke, for staying so calm, because this is so aggravating to watch.
That's very different.
No, they played one.
That actually
one was an extended version, and the other was for morning, like the CBS mornings.
She gave a different answer.
No. I watched the full unedited thing. She gives a kind of, and then
either way, the argument is not that Trump.
Well, don't say something false. Then either way,
no.
It's not true.
I'm saying that is true. That they issued 2 different versions.
No, she gave a longer answer, and the first half of it was a little bit more. There was a lack of succinct.
So there's 2 different versions.
This.
Are there 2 different versions?
No, it's one answer that then they only took one part of, like
Are
they did
there
with Trump
two
too.
videos that are different from each other of the answer?
They ran like a
So it's
a
yes.
version, like, oh my gosh. No, it's one interview, and every interview ever, like this one, will get played in different chunks. It makes you feel like you're going crazy. Am I speaking the wrong language? Why is he not hearing what I'm saying? Yeah, they played a version of it. As with everything you have to do for television, which is the full interview may have been 45 minutes, I don't know. But for this time slot, we only have 20. So we have to edit some stuff out. So when she gave a long answer and the first half of it was less succinct, it makes sense that you go, on the second half of it, she makes those points. It lacks context, but doesn't lack the contextual meaning, right? The stuff they're editing out didn't take out the meaning of her answer. So to shorten this down for wherever they were playing it, even on either on TV that night or CBS Mornings, I know they played a version of it. And for you to say, ha, see, I'm right because there were two versions of it. Yeah, okay, well then you're also doing election interference because you cut shorter clips for your Twitter and you cut some stuff out for that and you do longer version on your YouTube. It's so unserious. It's so unserious. If Tim Pool or any of his peeps are watching this, I look forward to seeing you a little bit later in January. It's going to be an interesting discussion. But then you have this.
And I know that you guys have a tribal reason why you're going to oppose. You're not.
No. I think this is on termination of the Constitution. There's just few things that are so succinctly an embodiment of someone's lack of dedication to our Constitution. So
let me ask you a question.
Him thinking Ann Seltzer.
Let me ask you a question. If I said the overturning of Roe v. Wade allows for women to be put in bonnets and red dresses and forced to be impregnated, am I calling for them to be?
Yeah, you're alluding to that being, yeah.
So when the Democrats literally said that, you were
wait,
saying,
that's the argument?
so you agree that the Democrats want to put women in bonnets?
No, I understand that you can both make an argument that we live in some dystopian reality where this is the case.
So here's my point.
But Trump earlier in the message was talking about overturning the election. He was saying he would be the one by the mechanism of terminating the Constitution.
So this
overturn the election results.
I'd call this the Covington effect. When was that the kids, the Covington kids, or the Sandman effect? Trump said, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. I'll give you, we talked with Cenk about this a couple weeks ago.
Please tell me, please.
Yeah.
Are you saying he wasn't obviously saying that we've gone so far because of his lies? You agreed those were lies.
What lies?
About the election.
Which ones?
How millions of votes and Dominion was flipping and all these things.
Did Trump explicitly say Dominion flipped votes?
Yes.
Then that's not true. Yeah, that was wrong.
Okay.
Well, there's a difference between being.
Why is everything? Is this a debate to people? It's funny. I think I'm not. They've said what I'm about to say that they told me publicly. Okay, so this is a public thing. But I was also told behind the scenes that they're having a really hard time getting liberals onto their show. And I was like, you know what? I love going on every show. Let's do it. I'm trying to get into those different bubbles to express things. Well, now I see why. That's so crazy. Okay, well, tell me the exact quote from Trump on Dominion voting machines. Otherwise, he'd ever said it. And luckily, I was able to say, yes, he literally said that Dominion flipped votes. That's literally what he said. And so then he goes, all right, I accept it. Well, you know what I was referring to. No one has conversations like that. When I do interviews with people, if they go, Vice President Harris said something about trans people and prisons, I'll go, oh, I know what you're talking about. I know the quote from 2019 in that ad. I'm not going to go, what's the exact quote? Otherwise, it didn't happen. When? What date? Was it March? Was it April? Was it May? Oh, you don't know? I'm not going to do that. I know what they're talking about. I've seen it in that ad a bunch of times, and then we can talk about it. Boom. You skip past a lot of whatever this is, which is gaining no value. And then when we actually do take something to the mat, when we actually do look into one of the questions, the Enrique Tarrio one, or termination, or Trump's threats against the media, then your research substantiates what I was saying. So what was all of that bickering about? It wasn't even bickering, one-sided, whatever.
Wrong and lying. And I'm not here to assert that I can read anyone's mind.
Okay, but there were times that the people around him heard him say, like, can you believe I lost to this guy?
Who said that?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, come on, like,
AIDS.
dude. You're making a lot of statements of fact, and I'm asking you just be like, hey, like who claimed?
Okay,
Trump
fine.
Said,
He accidentally made a bunch of false statements, and it led to
No, he lies.
terrible
I
things.
think Trump lies a lot.
And even if you thought the election was unfair, trying to do the fake elector scheme, all those things, none of it's justifiable. That
this is
so
Scott,
authoritarian.
Scott Adams
it's
calls
so
this,
authoritarian.
Right. Scott Adams calls this what is it? One screen, two movies effect.
I call this two people, one liar. That's what I call it. I love when he references little. I was reading a book about a man named Ralph, and he had an interesting philosophical lens for this, which is that we can both look at the same thing, and one of us can pretend to see something different. One more clip. No, it's fine. We've been going for 41 minutes. I'm going to stop this segment there. We're already going to do a whole nother one on my appearance on the Culture War edition of this Tim Pool show. And there's a couple things, in case you stumble across it, that also happened. At one point, he brought up George Floyd and was doing the same. Like, if you can't exactly give me every detail of the George Floyd thing, then you must not know a correct stance on George Floyd. And he said that George Floyd... he said, how did George Floyd get on the ground? And I said, there was an altercation between him and Derek Chauvin, and then he was brought to the ground. And Tim Pool said, no, you're wrong. Actually, George Floyd requested to be put on the ground. And if you go review the footage, again, it makes you feel crazy. I went watch. Obviously, there was an altercation that led to George Floyd being put on the ground rather forcefully. At one point, George Floyd said something like, I'll go on the ground, but just don't put me in the car. That is not a refutation of, at some point, he was then on the ground being held there by Derek Chauvin. And then asphyxiation was the technical cause of death. And they'll abstract that as well. So that part, important. Ahmaud Arbery, again, I'm being honest. I just completely have not read up on that in a really long time. When it did happen, I was more informed on it. And then as a bunch of other events have happened, I have detached from many of those details. And so I didn't really say much on that. And he made assertions that were strange as well. So those probably were the other two strange moments. And let me know, after I do this next one with Josiah of Pondering Politics, is this whole thing worth it? Because I could go in, as you're going to see when we review the Culture War edition, and I can be a little bit more debating, and I can also talk over you and stuff. And that's what I do when I go on Piers Morgan sometimes. You got to be a little bit more, I'm going to talk really fast, and do the debate stuff. But it's a bummer when you realize, oh, shoot, this is not about gaining any value. This is just about the clips. Tell me all that in the comments, and support the show. Get the members only bonus show by clicking that join button below.